So you alluded to Penn State, huge day for them. And we'll start with the coaching side of things here, as it looks like Clemson is going to pluck their defensive coordinator, Tom Allen, who was there for one season this year, the former head coach at Indiana. He said that he was initially maybe planning on taking some time off, but he's not really a guy who rests well. So coaches this year at Penn State. Obviously an awesome year for them up there. And Penn State, a bit of a reputation now being built there under James Franklin of guys who come in there, have success as a DC, and go on to whether it's a head coaching job as we see with Brent Pry or Manny Diaz. And then now Tom Allen, who some would say it's a lateral move, but Clemson coming in, and again, a huge hire for them defensively here, as Clemson was 47th in the country in scoring defense, Penn State 6th. A guy in Tom Allen who is as experienced as it gets.
Yeah, former head coach. So you look at that Penn State staff, a lot of former head coaches, a lot of current head coaches, right? Particularly the defensive coordinator position. You got Brent Pry, of course, now the head coach at Virginia Tech. Manny Diaz, who was a former head coach when he took the job, leaving Miami, now a head coach at Duke. Tom Allen at Indiana, head coach, goes to Penn State, has a great year, and now on to Clemson to be the defensive coordinator. Interesting move because, look, I mean, Clemson was – they're both these teams were playoff teams. You're seeing one playoff team to another, but Penn State was the better team than Clemson this year. So that's kind of a curious move. What led to it? Was it finances? Was it some interpersonal control issues? I don't know the answer to that. Again, this is all pretty fresh, but it's interesting because on paper, Clemson is an unbelievable program. You don't really look twice when someone goes there, but from Penn State, which has played very good football every single year, for the last few years, that is surprising. Also, one thing about Penn State that I think is unique is James Franklin is such a good, and his team, such a good recruiter, such a good evaluator, right? So the defensive talent at Penn State has been absolutely unbelievable every single year. This past year was no different. So you've had some great defensive minds go through Penn State, but they've been coaching multiple first-rounders, second-rounders, day one and day two picks, freakazoid athletes, really good physical traits across the board at that school. So, you've had a good run of defensive coordinators. It's hard to get 4 good ones in a row, but I think they can do it because of what they're going to have personnel-wise. That's, of course, the Penn State side. There's also the Clemson side of the equation.
Well, and if you're a Clemson fan, just real quick, you're getting a guy here as – we saw previously. When did Clemson have as much success as they've ever had with Brent Venables as defensive coordinator, a guy who pretty much ran that side of the ball by himself? You'd expect something similar with Tom Allen here, where Dabo doesn't really have to worry about that side of the football in a sense.
Yeah, and if you look at what you hear about Tom Allen, going back to when he was in Indiana, which, by the way, before Cignetti was the darling of college football in Indiana, Tom Allen had a lot of success there on his initial run and was, really talked about as a head coach there. Of course, things got stale. Indiana is not an easy place to sustain winning. We'll see if Cignetti can sustain what he's done this year. But culture is something you associate with Clemson football, the importance of culture. That's why they don't go in the portal like other teams. That's why they recruit a certain type of kid. So that's something Dabo preaches. It's something he practices. And with Tom Allen, you hear it a lot. Here's a quote from James Franklin. This before Allen left. If you know Tom has just been awesome. There's not a better guy in the profession. His humility is impressive. His faith is impressive. He's been awesome. He jumped right back into this thing and is really doing a great job. And I think his family's enjoying it. I think Tom's enjoying it. We're enjoying having him. We feel blessed to have Tom Allen and his family. So this is a guy who, again, you hear about the person first before you talk about the coordinator from James Franklin. He's not afraid to get in the mix. He jumped in a dog pile at Ole Miss, chipped his tooth. He body slammed a Hoosier safety after a big pick against Michigan. So he's in the mix, right? Big culture guy. His mantra is LEO, love each other. So that sounds like something you'd hear out of Clemson. Played with a big nickel at Clemson. That's something, at Indiana. That's something maybe you see at Clemson was, think back to like Isaiah Simmons and guys like that. He's someone who's been multiple, but usually a 4-down front. Again, Penn State, with the pass rushers you had, you didn't have to do too much with those guys other than let them eat. But he not only did it at Penn State, he also made improvements on defense at Indiana. Looking from 15th to 17, Indiana had the nation's most improved defense, 169 fewer yards allowed per game. Passing defense went through the roof. They did have some really good corners there at that school. So, it's not just a one-year job here at Penn State that you're saying, hey, we're catching a rising star. This is someone who's been around, who's been proven, and appears to be a culture fit when you just do some research and hear a little bit more about Tom Allen, the person, and what he stands for.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like we said, Penn State, they're losing him to Clemson. But
wait. Before we even straight, just one last thing on Clemson I want to get to, Pete, which is this offense next year. When you look at it on paper, I know they lose Stool. I know they lose Phil Maffa. Offensive line will have some movement, but another year with Matt Luke in the offensive line to get it right. And then Kay Klubnik, when he started running the football, I think he became a totally different player. You saw it all the way through the playoff. Kay Klubnik is going to enter the 2025 season as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. His young receiver room is absolutely outstanding. Moore, Wesco, some of these guys are just really, really good players. Are going to continue to get better. So offensively, you feel good about what Clemson has. You have pieces on defense with Sammy Brown, others. You have some very good, talented defensive linemen. Not enough. Not what you had when Clemson was really rolling. So the good corners as well. Can they get this defense to come together? And most importantly, here's the key stat, because it's not just defense as a whole. To me, it's one particular stat. Last year, Penn State, 7th in the nation against FBS opponents, yards per rush allowed. Clemson, 90th in the nation against FBS opponents, yards per rush allowed. You saw it against Texas in the playoff. That is what Clemson needs to return to, is strong run defense. Because if you can't stop the run, you cannot win in college football.